think they're just figures. But here's what it does look like this morning, this Thursday morning, right there in Okene. So it's 21 degrees centigrade and humidity is 52%. So that's what it looked like when they tell you that the weather is a little foggy and visibility is poor. That right there is how it does look like this morning in Okene as we speak. So the Ohinoi's Palace is what you also see there underneath. And so some activity will be going on there today. And so that is what pilots go through. So when your flight is delayed, have an idea for that one. Can you even drive on the road? As safe as the road is, you can see beyond you. So those are the scenes. That's how it happens. What a scene, actually.
Actually, well, but closer down, I mean, when you look at what you see closer down, you can see the iconic palace of the Ohinoyi of Okene Kingdom, who will be installed later today. And I know that palace is such an icon that when people see it, they immediately recognize it. And some who do not know where it is say, oh, is this in Nigeria? What precisely is this? Well, we wish the new Ohinoyi, a long reign, long may he reign. But right there is the weather. The fog will clear much later. Right now, what it does provide is some cool in the air, making you want to hug your blankets. But we say, hey, get up and go. It's another lovely morning here in Nigeria, there in Kogi State, here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, and I believe in Lagos as well, Ayo.
Oh, most certainly, and that's perhaps quite iconic indead. Well, this is Lagos, Adeniji Adele on the Lagos Island. Well, if you are applying the third mainland bridge, you will see some indication that you need to veer into a particular route to go into Adeniji Adele area of Lagos Island, and this is the interior of that part of Lagos. Central Lagos, some people might say. For some, yes, that is Central Lagos, and quite a number of histories of several families right there at Adeniji Adele part of Lagos Island. Quite a vast place, I must say. And of course, as you can see there, the skyline is right there. The weather in Lagos at this time is 27 degrees, feels like 32 degrees, partly cloudy, and humidity at 95%, and wind traveling 10 kilometers per hour. So again, this is Lagos. Chamberlain.
Yeah, so there you go. What a scene. So today, some activities will also be happening today. The courts will be busy, I'll tell you. So you have to keep an eye and an ear on some of what will be playing out. For instance, today, the federal government will be arraigning suspected terrorists who allegedly burned the Rivers State House of Assembly. So that will be going on today in the courts. So after all of those commentary, we get to see something. So now they are the ones who are suspected to have set the State House of Assembly on fire. Remember, that happened in October last year. So Honorable Justice Bolaji Olajuwon of the Federal High Court will be entertaining that matter today. And as a matter of fact, it's supposed to be 9 a.m. So they're going to be going over that one by 9 a.m. today. And of course, we'll bring you all the details as we get them.
It is interesting that is going to be happening, because some people would have said, oh, but we thought that was political. That arson was political in nature. Well, human beings were used to carry out whatever it was. I mean, even if they had political backing, some human beings carried it out. And perhaps at the end of the day, when people begin to face the music and the consequences of their actions, they will know that they shouldn't let themselves be used by anybody. Yeah. I'll take a look at this one. Rivers is also still in the news. This time around is at the Supreme Court, where the governorship election appeals will be heard today. The Supreme Court is going to be delivering judgment on not just Rivers alone, but also on Taraba and Sokoto states as well. Recall that throughout last week, and even the week before that, the Supreme Court had been listening to a number of final briefs on these appeals, which had come from the Court of Appeal. This is now going to be Judgment Day on Rivers, Taraba, and Sokoto State.
Yeah, so the APC candidate at the time, Tony Cole, is challenging the victory of Governor Fubara on the ground that, guess what, he did not resign as the Accountant General of Rivers State before the elections. So that's going to be very interesting, I tell you.
Very interesting indeed.
And people had thought that that was going to happen, all those states you mentioned. How come it was held? Why did it? Well, it's going to happen today, so we'll wait for all of them as it plays out.
I've been feeling like a prophetess before now, but I assure you.
Try yourself now.
My prophetic powers no longer exist on this particular realm. Today we're just going to wait for what their lordships have to deliver from the Supreme Court of Nigeria.
Well, interesting.
Well, when at least you...
Yeah, I just thought, step into what shoes? Come on, Chamberlain. I let her retain her. Maybe she just needs to go to the mountain for some refresher, but that is it. Perhaps it's time for us to take a look at the papers now, Chamberlain.
Okay, so maybe we should just go ahead and start off with leadership then, because, I mean, leadership newspaper guys, almost all the dailies are focusing on the scenario. Okay, let's have about Vanguard, whichever one, either of two. But Vanguard highlights Plateau, which is what we get to see a lot in a lot of the dailies this morning. So gunmen defy curfew, kill over 30, raise houses. And I don't know what is happening to us. Sometimes, when you're reading the stories, and chances are the tendency for people to just see them as figures, text, but these are human lives. This cannot be allowed to keep happening. It's just kind of, whatever the reasons they give. But look at the writer. Group alleges compromised by security agencies, ending insecurity, our cardinal agenda, Shatima. That's what you see on the front page here. Relief coming with more forex, reduced inflation, CBN, NESG, and then the picture right there. Money laundering charge. Obiano pleads not guilty, gets bail. So that's Vanguard.
I'm looking at Daily Trust now. They have this Plateau crisis as well as their focus. Pregnant woman gives birth in open. That's what you find on the front page. Okay. Children missing as death toll rises to 43. That's according to GNI, MDA. Christian Muslim leaders point fingers at security agents. We're working hard to restore peace. That's according to Plateau government. Well, that's the lead story on the front page of Daily Trust.
Interesting. Well, the lead story on the front page of This Nigeria is no less concerning this morning. Blood flows again in Plateau as gunmen kill 30. That's what you find as lead on the front page of This Nigeria newspaper. Women, children among victims. Shocked Governor Mufwang calls incident genocide. Attackers struck a few hours after government declared curfew in Mangu, LGA. It'll be good, really, to understand exactly what is going on and put paid to it. But that's the lead story of This Nigeria for now.
Well, leadership already highlights the Plateau story, more bloodbath, Plateau in Benue, Plateau as gunmen kill 55. Gunmen still running riot under our watch, under this administration's watch. But above that, no plan to relocate federal capital to Lagos, ascribed to presidency. So that's what you see right there.
And if you look at The Guardian, they veer away from the Plateau story to looking at something more fundamental. 1999 Constitution's wear and tear is the lead story right there. Endless reviews, amendments cost National Assembly 1 billion naira yearly. So that's the lead story on the front page of The Guardian. I think you're trying to look at how much we spent in all together over the years, going to 24.8 billion. Are we getting the results? Would be the big question. Let's leave it there for The Guardian newspapers.
And segue to the Daily Independent, talking about the CBN governor this morning. CBN governor hints on reduction in petrol price, inflation, assures ongoing reforms will bring positive outcomes, says Naira currently undervalued, FX will stabilize this year. That's the lead story of Daily Independent this morning.
Well, how about Business Day? High potential sectors missing in Nigeria's growth story, as described to the NESG. CBN governor says Naira undervalued, targets genuine price discovery, predicts lower inflation, stable Naira in 2024. How many will love that? Stable Naira. That's business there.
If you take a look at New Telegraph, you'll find this one: how Nigerian varsities can end jackpot syndrome by OOUVC. That story is right there, pages 3 and 5 for you. I'm trying to see if I can read the writers. Urges schools to develop workable, practicable curricula, says mass exodus wiping off Nigeria's cultures. Warns as we're moving out, the Chinese are coming in droves.
Ooh.
Okay? Nigerian youths, talented, vibrant, ready to compete globally. That's ascribed to the president. We'll leave it there for New Telegraph.
I could jump on that story straight away, Mark, but hey, let's be done with this major stories. Nigerian News Direct has this one on its front page, still talking about the CBN. CBN wields rod to tame inflation and forex infractions. Stories on page 11, as Cardoso promises to bring inflation down to 21.4%. Oh gosh, can we have it once single digit? But maybe I'm too ambitious. That's the lead story of Nigerian News Direct today.
Well, the Tribune also highlights a similar narrative with some of the other dailies. Gunmen defy curfew, kill 25 in Plateau local government area. Several houses, markets, banks. But beneath that, you also get to see Ibadan explosion. Number of fatalities still unknown. Persons still unaccounted for. Ascribed to Residents Association.
That's really sad indeed. I mean, I think for all of the dailies, Plateau immediately sticks out, but I think that we can wait to get into the conversation because that's going to be lead on our topics today, and we're going to ask that you stay with us as we look into what exactly is happening on the Plateau of Nigeria. But, you know, you also have a number of other stories right there. The CBN targeting 21.4% inflation, says Naira is undervalued. The CBN governor was speaking. I think he spoke via an online means to, or virtual means rather, to I think NESG or so, the Nigeria. This is the Guardian newspapers now speaking to Nigeria Economic Summit Group, and I think it was a conversation he was having with them. And these are some of the things that came out of that discussion. So it'll be interesting to know what precisely the CBN has up its sleeves to bring the Naira to its true value, if indeed it is undervalued. And also what they're also going to be doing about inflation, because as some people have said, you know, these measures that the CBN puts in place works in places where their systems work. In places where you can, you know, there's a system to the, or let me say there's a method to the madness.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for, the phrase I'm looking for. There's a method to the madness.
That's right.
If you do this, this is the result you get. Some people have said Nigeria's economics defy some of those things, and that we need to study our economy a little more to understand precisely, because it's still a developing economy. It's a frontier economy. A lot of it, a large section of it is informal. So if you take certain steps which, you know, will provide other results in developed economies, it might not necessarily provide the same results here. I do not know if the CBN governor agrees, but it'll be interesting to know what it is they're planning to not just bring down the inflation, let's say the inflation numbers, which we are all saying, but also to make sure that the real inflation is affected. Because sometimes when we're talking about these numbers, ordinary people do not understand it. When they say it has come down, they're like, but the price of things are still up. What are you talking about? So I'm hoping that it won't just be affecting the overall or the, you know, the big headline inflation, but would also be affecting the real inflation. I believe Amy Thompson, I beg your pardon, John McQuarrie will be having more of that much later on the business segment of this program. Yeah,
but similar to that too is what New Telegraph highlights, how the VCs are talking about how they think universities can contribute to end all of this syndrome where young folks, professionals, whoever it is, just leave the country because they don't see a future here in the country. So he's talking about what they can do to stem the tide. So beyond that, because look, if those issues are not properly addressed by the financial sector, you could have a major challenge to the banks. This year, the banks could face lots of retrenchments. They could face a lot of crunch, and then they'll have no choice. So just like several other companies may also face a similar scenario. So it's going to be hugely important that governments not only talk the talk, but walk the talk. So now ministers, whoever they are, they have to fold their sleeves, put your boots on the ground, go out there and ensure that these policies of government works. It's beyond saying this government ministry have met their financial target. That one have met their financial target. Fine, good, as it may sound, but the real issues, they've got to impact on businesses, SMEs in this country. If you don't have all of those across board, you're going to have a problem. You have to have those companies, little ones there, I'm trying to get the names now, SMEs, whatever it is, across the country, that they can employ 20, 30 people just like that.
Even 3, 5.
Yeah,
they
10.
call them micro business. They even have nano businesses now. So they start from there.
Have all of them across the country. It will mop up a lot of idle hands who also have some skill whatsoever. So that is going to be incredibly important. So the governments need to know, no matter the policies you announce, you need to find a way to measure the results.
I think what's important in what you have just said now, Chamberlain, is in communication. I say this all the time. How we get the message to the people, how we get the message to the people that really need that information. I think it's a lot more critical in all of the conversations that we're having, because if the people don't get it, there's a problem. There are countless fantastic policies over the years. The challenge we often talk about has always been in the area of implementation. And implementation starts from the major stakeholders even having a good enough understanding of what they're supposed to do and what the outcomes are. Speaks to also what you raised the other time, Alpa, in the issue that you talked about in business. The NESG conversation, that conversation with Mr. Cardoso, actually, I think it actually came from the 2024 macroeconomic outlook launched by the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. And that event, by the way, I would say is an elephant, because it really depends on what angle of it you're looking at. The Business Day newspaper today, for instance, also took a look at another part of that particular conversation. High potential sectors missing in Nigeria's growth story. That's part of the outlook of that economic outlook, that event that the Nigeria Economic Summit Group had. High potential sectors missing in Nigeria's growth story. That's the lead of that paper. And then the CBN was talking about, the Business Day was talking about CBN governor saying Naira undervalued, targets genuine price recovery and all of that. And so perhaps the question to be asked then would be, what are these high potential sectors that are missing in Nigeria's growth story? A good number of people say that loads and loads of insecurity that we are talking about in the Benue, in Benue State and on the Plateau have to do with solid minerals. The Minister for Solid Minerals has said that countless times. The question is, what are we doing? These high potential sectors, what are these high potential sectors that are missing in our growth story? Coming from no less than Nigeria Economic Summit Group. And consequently, I think they also asked the federal government, the president, to engage professionals in policy professionals, so to speak, in getting all of these things done. You know what? If some of these things are factored in, as you mentioned, Chamberlain, so many other people will be properly mopped up from the unemployment basket. That's huge and a huge concern to Nigeria. So my take from the front page of Business Day today. And if you also look at the front page of I think that's the front page of This Nigeria newspaper, yes. The presidency also had this conversation that they are, talking about from the front page of This Nigeria. The presidency saying Tinubu has no plan to relocate federal capital to Lagos, and saying that ethnic bigots are behind claims. Those who believe that the conversations around moving certain departments of the CBN and the FAAN to Lagos, they are looking at some political leanings to it. I think it's important for the federal government's ministries, departments, and agencies not just to give the people the headlines, but to also give an understanding. What are the figures behind it? There are those who are saying that the CBN, for instance, spend a lot of money sending people to Lagos to come and do one job or the other. Is that information from the CBN also in public domain? Perhaps it is time, not just for the Department of Communication or Directorate of Communication in the CBN or any federal agency to come out and speak, but the headmen, the CEOs, the point men in each of these ministries, departments, and agencies should come out and explain to Nigerians why these things need to be done. And not just to announce it, but tell us well in advance that these things need to happen because of so-and-so reason, because of so-and-so costs that is already, taking out of the coffers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which money begins, belongs to every Nigerian. I think that's another very, very important information. Dare I also talk about that story on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper about the gunmen defying the curfew and killing over 30 and raising houses. It's on the front page of This Nigeria. It's also on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper right there on your screen right now. While speaking about it, the chief of army staff, I think, was the one that said, look, we are aware that this thing has been on for about 10 years. 10 years. Insecurity. Lives lost. In fact, some people are already, I think it's the governor of the state, one of the papers said, quoted the issue as calling it a genocide. Now that is coming from a governor, whom in most cases will call the chief security officer of his state. What is happening? I have implicit confidence, I'll say it again, implicit confidence in our security apparatus. I have no doubt that they know what they're doing and they know what to do. The question is, why does this seem intractable? What exactly is happening? There are some who say that it's because of some mineral deposit. There are some who say that there are some powerful policemen, powerful politicians behind these things. Do powerful people need some people to die so that they can live? I was asking, just thinking about it this morning, Jamelin and Malkwe, how many years do we all have to live in this house? Those people who are fomenting trouble today, please, for how long do you have to live? Because our lives are terminal. And as a popular musician Wizkid said, life is cheap. So exactly what's happening here, I'm trying to understand, guys.
Well, I guess those are some of the issues that we're going to highlight as we progress, so that we'll have a lot more to it, and the authorities need to know that they need to do much more than they've done, because we're not getting the kind of results they like to get, we imagine. But then we did start telling you about what to expect from the courts. So let's get back there now. Some images that these ones are happening now at the moment. So moving away from the paper review. So we did tell you about some of the cases that will come up with Taraba, Rivers, Sokoto. So those are images coming through this morning from the Supreme Court, where Mr. Tony Cole challenging the election of Rivers State Governor Ofubara. But Mr. Cole did cite alleged irregularities, non-compliance with the Electoral Act, corrupt practices, along his reasons for wanting the decision to go in his favor. He's also seeking the reversal of the judgment of the Court of Appeal and Tribunal, which upheld the declaration of Ofubara as winner of the Rivers State governorship election. So there's a 5-member panel of justices who have arrived. So the first appeal has been called in the court, and that is the one of Rivers. So that's why you see the all eyes and attention so attentive as to where will the pendulum swing today. So the fate of the Rivers State governor, can we say, hangs in the balance this morning. So many will be looking to see, will Toyinko be the happier of the lot, or will the governor sit pretty, saying, well, yes, I don't need to call for the removal vans this time around, so who knows what will happen there?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know what your guess is.
I'm not sure the prophetess here.
No
predictions coming through
I
today?
hung up my boats, Chamberlain. Oh, dear. Well,
Okay.
I can tell you that in a matter of minutes or so, we should be able to know where that, where their lordships are going to be delivering judgment and, which way the pendulum has swung. So we're certainly will be updating you here on the matter. And
that's right.
But I know coming up next is our conversation on what is happening in Plateau. If indeed there are powerful people behind it, are they more powerful than the state? That's the big question. Do we have people who are above the law in this country? Well,
yes, well, we did put a report together, which we would like you to have a look at before we delve into the conversation this morning. Have a look at this report first before we bring you more in Plateau.
Until recently, Plateau State was ranked among the most peaceful in the country. But the same cannot be said today, as bandits have repeatedly wreaked havoc on several villages in 30 communities across 4 local government areas. This is Bokos and Barkinladi local governments, and on the eve of Christmas in 2023, bandits ravaged the communities, terrorizing residents, destroying homes, and leaving a trail of deaths numbering about 90.
It was raining at that moment, so 2 men came in army uniform, as if they packed for the rain to be over. So after the rain, they left, and later in the night, that was the time people, those armed men, they came and started spraying bullets on them. He was outside, so he ran for his dear life to hide.
The governor of the state, Caleb Mufwang, was appalled by the incident, as shown in his statewide broadcast.
It is quite grievous to my heart that Plateau today has become the cynosure of the whole nation, and indeed the world, for the wrong reasons. These unprovoked and simultaneous attacks in different villages were clearly premeditated and coordinated. This series of attacks on our people are a clear case of criminality, insurgency, and terrorism, and must be seen and handled in that manner.
Several meetings were held by the security chiefs, even up to the Senate. President Bola Tinubu gave a clear directive for them to apprehend the terrorists, and the military hierarchy promised that something will be done.
I must tell you unequivocally that the military is up to the task on the plateau. What happened was a political conflict wrongly managed that snowballed on Christmas Day, and we are working to address it going forward. There's a role for every other stakeholder to play in resolving this conflict, and so we are ready to work with all these stakeholders to ensure that peace and stability return to Plateau.
Less than a month after this promise, similar attack is recorded in Mangu village of Mangu local government, and today Kwahaslalek village in the borders of Mangu and Barkinladi local government areas. The total death toll from the 2 attacks is 34. These attacks has led to several people in the affected communities deserting their homes, but it will take a renewed effort and more assurances from the military to match words with action in keeping the people of Plateau State safe and secure.
Oh, yes, indeed, Honorable Dachum Bagos will be speaking to us this morning. But before he comes on, have a look at this. This is Mr. Samson Dallock. He spoke, albeit angrily, at what is going on in Plateau State. And here were his thoughts.
I'm here to report the situation in Mangu local government to the whole world to understand. What is happening in Mangu at this particular point in time? The military are the ones sending our people away to allow the militia to burn their houses. At this particular point in time, they have sent every Christian away from a new market, and thereby leaving the Muslim to go and burn their houses. They set the curfew. The curfew is restricted to only people within Mangu, within the Christian domain. But in the Muslim domain, they are free to move and do whatever they wanted to do. And not only that, the military has killed 3 of our young men, in which I know one is from my own church. They killed one yesterday, and I reported to the security. He said that it was a fake soldiers. At first he said I was lying, until I proved to him beyond reasonable doubt. Then finally he said it was a fake soldier. I said no, it's not a fake soldier. It's a real soldier who killed him. It's not a soldier. I said no, it's a soldier that killed him. Finally they made signal to the soldier and he disappeared from the scene. This thing go on and on. Now that I'm speaking to you, all of them are switched off their phone and they allow the place to be burned down and raised by the people. And this is what is going on even now that I'm speaking to you. People around in Gindri Junction, down from this side, Lagiri side, down there, their houses are now at place because the soldiers protected them and they allowed them to burn people's houses. They are not doing anything about it. So we in Mangu local government, as far as Christians are concerned, we don't want the military in Mangu local government. They should park at their loads and go. We don't want them. We don't need them and we don't want them. Because the plan, they have been bought, they have been paid with the price to carry out their duty, what they are doing. So that reason I'm saying, and I'm calling the whole world to understand that this thing should stop, and people should come to our rescue to save us. If not, that is an evil plan for us to destroy Mangu local government. Because the governor is from here, and we are not going to allow it. We are going to fight with less of the Babylon until they kill us all. The military should keep on killing.
Very concerning. Very worrying scenario playing out in Mangu local government area in Plateau State. So Mr. Bagos is here with us. Yes, we did hear the chief of the army chief saying the military is up to the task in Plateau. But when we hear things like this, it only raises more concern. What do you think is going on?
Yeah, well, Chamberlain, I still trying to fathom that what tax that the military are up to, that you can see the main locals, the main people within the community have lost confidence on the security architecture that that the president have directed. So what has happened in Mangu in the past 48 hours? I'm not waiting to hear the president giving directives again, because there is already directives from the president that, look, go into this place and address this issue. And reports coming in and out that people are still hopeless. Today you hear a kinetic or non-kinetic approach to some of this. We still cannot see any improvement. So this is a situation where it's just like a son is now telling his father that he's going to disfather him. From the testimony. And it's not, if an elder is speaking like that, it should tell you that that is the feeling of the entirety of the people in that very area. Losing confidence in the military. And the military are now telling you that they have the capacity. We believe that they have the capacity. We believe that, look, they have all it takes. We believe that there is so much intelligence to be able to address this issue. But why is it that up till now, these issues are still lingering? Yesterday, my constituents, from like the pictures that are flying in now, these are pictures of my constituents, a burial we had in my church in Jos. And we were taking the corpse to Kanke. You have to pass through Mangu. And curfew is ongoing at that particular moment. All we need was security clearance between Mangu, within the roads of Mangu to get to Kanke. But in between, in the road, during curfew, these pictures, just yesterday, during curfew, our people were attacked. I was supposed to be in that convoy, but because I have to be in Abuja, I could have been a victim of what these pictures are, because it's a burial of one of my members. So what now happened? Curfew ongoing, but these people were attacked yesterday. And the attack now took place within a certain community, just from what the elder was saying on the TV. The attack took place just within a certain community, even with police coverage. Because they had to take security clearance. There was a security vehicle that led them through. So after the security vehicle led them, after like the 10 vehicles have passed, the vehicles behind got this attack.
From who?
Definitely from what the elder have said, because a certain community within the locality, no issue of curfew within those areas. So now we keep asking, is the security just for one certain area, and again another certain area will just be doing what they need to do without actually knowing what is on ground? Because now, if internationally, what is curfew supposed to be? Curfew is supposed to for security to be able to curtail, and not just to curtail, for everybody to be inside, that whosoever that is the culprit, for security agencies to arrest. So if this kind of attack will happen on innocent people that we are passing, and no single attack and no single arrest have been made, so what is the essence of the curfew? The curfew is that, look, everybody, the real people, go inside, so that we will now be able to apprehend and arrest those that have come into this community to cause harm. But tell us, rather, within the hours, within the time that the governor declared curfew, there was no life lost, because he was so proactive to be able, so that no much violence will go around. But the killings that took place, majority of those killings, 90% took place during the curfew hours. Where are the security agencies? What are they
What has
doing?
the CP said about this? Has it made any statement?
Well, I've not had any statement from the CP yet.
What about what about Operation Safe Haven?
Yeah, so how safe is that operation on the Plateau? Since 2001 or 2000 or whatever, that the Operation Safe Haven have been on the Plateau. How safe have they made Plateau State over the years?
Yeah, so the thing about this, the thing about this accusation, these allegations that this gentleman has brought forward, in a not so gentle manner, is that, they're not new. These accusations against security agents are not new, especially on the Plateau. On the Plateau, and maybe even some parts of Benue State as well. We hear it a lot in the North Central region. What exactly has been done to ensure that, it can be seen that the security agents are only trying to be neutral, if indeed that is what if indeed that's their role? Yeah. If these accusations are not new, governor in, governor out, these accusations have persisted. What have been the backroom conversations to ensure that the military can actually show that his hands are up and they're clean?
You can't remain neutral when accusative fingers is always on you. We have advised the security agencies, not once, not twice. Look, we know you have intels on most of these things. We know you have the capacity. But who are those bad eggs amongst you that don't usually carry out directives that are being given? Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Defense Staff will come, he will deploy, he believes in the capacity of his men. But when they now retrieve back, what are those reports that are getting on daily basis? To me, for killings to go on under curfew is a failure. of someone. Someone else needs to roll. Resources are being set. Taxpayers' money is being spent on the plateau for only God knows when to be able to address the issue of insecurity. Even on that level of the taxpayers' money that is being spent on security on the plateau needs even to be investigated. What are they doing with the resources that have been allocated to them to address the issues of insecurity on the plateau that up till now, nothing. Today, what is his name? The former governor of Anambra, Obian, he's facing charges because of security votes. Why can't we hear that the security allocations that are being spent on security is being probed? So what are they doing with the resources that today? It's either that we don't have the manpower, it's either that the equipment we have, maybe the terrorists have more than what we have. What do they need to really address the issue of? Because see, Maupe, the danger here, and we have always said it, security should not allow issues to degenerate to allow people to get into self-help. Because once it gets into self-help, even the security will not be able to curtail that.
Now, I know that, you know, in Mangu, just a few days before now, the governor announced a curfew, and this was based on intelligence reports. It seemed that, you know, they already had intelligence as something sinister. In fact, they had already seen the signs, because we understand that there had been some silent killings. And so the governor had to declare curfew to prevent an escalation, so to speak. But that doesn't seem to have worked now. Last year, towards the end of last year, when I think it would be appropriate to use the word massacre, when the massacre happened, because over 100 people were said to have been killed in those attacks. Now, we were able to speak with the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Lagbaja, who said that, you know, it was a political mismanagement. I'm hoping I'll be able to get the right words to use. We'll be able to track him up. Yeah, so he said there was something it was a political mismanagement. And I'm wondering, what is currently happening in Mongo and spreading to other parts, you know, of the plateau? What exactly is political about it that is not being managed properly?
You know, so when I heard that it's politically, it wasn't managed as a result of some political, I have tried to put one and two together. One,
I hope that we'll be able to get that track properly so that, you know.
Mangu is a local government where, number one, 90% of residents or thereabout in Mangu local government are predominantly Christians. So who is fighting what politically? Because if it was politically, it wasn't politically managed, you could have maybe heard that the killings is between the indigents, the real maybe Christian, between a political group among them. Is it either APC or either PDP or ABGA or Labour? That could have been the kind of crisis if it were political. So where are we now looking at it from the political angle, especially in Mangu local government, where you have in some of these villages that people come, kill, chase the people from the land and occupy? That's genocide. That's land grabbing. So how that has to do with politics? To me, that's economical, because most of these areas, and I've said it, look, we need to start looking at to diagnose the issues of killings on the plateau and some parts of the North Central. Today, Mangu is a local government that gives more than 50% of the grains that are being consumed in Plateau and part of the North Central. If possible, contributes to the GDP of this country almost 30% in terms of grains, in terms of potatoes. So now, these issues have not been. Mangu is on lockdown. The killings that are ongoing in Mangu, the farming season of this year will have low yields because people are not. Most of these grains have been burnt in the market or thereabout, or even in people's houses. What are we now talking about even for food security 2024, 2025? So many reasons that government needs to look into this issue to bring the proper diagnosis into the issues of killings on the plateau, the issues of killings on the ground. And the theory, some of us have to go into research. Because of these killings, I have to go into security studies. I have to look at what is really the problem. Why are we always on the front burner? Major reason, 70% of the reasons of most of the killings on the plateau, to me, is merely economical. It's merely economical.
Is there mining activity?
Absolutely.
Some of these things?
All the areas, all the villages that have been sacked on the plateau, all, not single one, that mining activity is not going on there, not single one. And not just mining at the same time goes on with agriculture, with farming in those areas. All the villages from Riom, from Barkiladi, from Jos South to Mangu, to Bokos, even was, okay, what will you now talk about was that is 90%, 80 to 90% Muslims. Killings are going on there because of mining. So we need to sit down and look at these issues and do proper diagnosis of these issues. In every community, let me give you an example. For instance, today in Wuse Market, everybody is going, but someone can just put a fake crisis in Wuse Market, and all of these shops in Wuse Market will be, all these hoodlums will come and take what they need to take out of this market. So giving the wrong diagnosis to the issues of killings on the plateau is what will not give the security agencies the right answer. But if today you come and say it's clash between Muslim and Christian, or it's clash between farmers
so clearly
and
there's more to this. You say mining is
really
going on, and so the other cases are just a facade for people to carry on this mining activity.
And because it has not been again. We'll
continue with this in a moment, but we need to just go on this break. So we'll have more questions for you. Ayo will also weigh in on that matter, so don't go away.
In a world hungry for goodness, with a splash of golden terra oil, a mom can transform a frown into a smile. Make a lunch hour a happy hour. Change no thanks into yes please. Provide care when our nearest and dearest needs it most. And resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty, nourishing family meals is all that matters. The world needs moms, because where there are moms, there is hope, happiness, and love. Golden Terra Oil, or pure love.
Discover Lipton's flavorful and balanced taste. We pick fine quality tea leaves from selected tea gardens around the world to give you Lipton Yellow Label's flavorful and balanced taste in every sip.
Cube is available in beef, chicken, jollof, and shrimp flavors at attractive prices of 50, 100, 200, and 500 naira.
Terra Cube, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
Kana da abubuwa da yawa yau.
Ovaltine kyakkyawan zaɓi domin yara masu basira.
Imagine lovely meals you can cook with these ingredients. You spend heavily, but no guarantee of a tasty meal. Not making a right choice of seasoning cube can ruin your meal, money, and confidence. For a tasty meal, do not compromise. Choose gold.
Use Terra Gold for the rich, consistent taste your loved ones crave for. Good for soups, stews, and jollof. Terra Gold. 1 cube, endless possibilities.
Well, thank you for staying with us. Honorable Bagos, the Chief of Army Staff, I think, was the one that was talking about the fact that this has been going on for more than 10 years and that they have been doing everything they can. How significant would you say the impact of a lack of a local government system, efficient local government system is on this issue?
Yeah, well, I don't understand. The lack of local government system, is it in terms of local government to be able to have the ability to address issues in terms of security or in terms of insecurity?
The understanding
from the
that I
Assembly,
have,
that has been our major cry, that local government autonomy is what is one of the key areas in addressing the issues of insecurity. State police has been one of the things that we have been canvassing for. And we can clearly see that regional police have worked in the southeast, in the south-south, with Amotekun, that today you hardly hear any issue of killings or any issue of rustling or whatsoever in the southeast. It clearly shows, which means that if a region or a community is ready to police its own environment, it will work. So these are areas and issues that we have been canvassing for in the National Assembly, that look, we need to amend our constitution that local government should have autonomy. Once local government has autonomy, the local government chairman will have security votes at his disposal, will be able to have will be able to equip the local vigilante in terms of gadgets to monitor, to get intel. Will be able to equip most of the local chiefs, because that is the first line charge in addressing the issue of insecurity, and then down to state police. Because once the locals will start policing themselves, I can tell you that we'll address over 70 to 80% of these issues. The military is just to give external cover, because I don't see where the locals will now be among the people that will kill themselves. And that's one of the issues I have with the security agencies, that when after killings have taken place in a community, they will come and still arrest the same locals that they are the perpetrators.
Perhaps the challenge here, Honorable, just one second.
Locals now be the person that will cause havoc on his people.
Perhaps the challenge here goes back to the locality here now being the state government or the state on its own, because as you said, the National Assembly has been doing everything it can to ensure that we have a virile local government system in each of the states. And as you also mentioned, an effective local government system is the first line of defense against insecurity in any state, which will also help the state to do its job. But you would also agree with me and a number of Nigerians that not being able to get a virile local government system to work in Nigeria is not a function of the National Assembly, not a function of the security agencies, but that of the states themselves, particularly the Houses of Assembly. So what should the Houses of Assembly, particularly the House of Assembly in Plateau State, and the governor of the state be looking at now in the area of ensuring a virile and effective local government system to forestall this over 10-year menace?
In Plateau, there have been local government system that quite operative in Plateau State, from government to government, from the Dari era to Jang era to Lalong era. All of them have, at one point or the other, have local government elections to be able to put local government chairmen. But in those same local government, you still have that same problem, because no local government chairman has authority over any security apparatus as the Constitution is given to him now at the moment. No local government chairman has dedicated amount of money in terms of security votes for him to buy, is it security vehicles for him to be able to equip, who is even being given to, go to any local government within the 774 local government. Highest security personnel you will see in that local government will not be up to 10.
Are you saying then, Honorable,
you have some civil defense, you have...
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying then that a virile local government system is not capable of defending or forestalling insecurity in any local government in Nigeria, given what you just revealed now?
Yeah, I didn't get what you said earlier. I couldn't get.
No, I asked you whether or not an effective local government system in Plateau State would have forestalled this. And you are saying that they don't have what it takes. The community development associations are the instruments of the local government system. So are you saying that they are ineffective to deal with insecurity in the state?
If a governor of a country that is being called a chief security officer by mere constitutional pronunciation cannot be able to address, to be able to give directives to all the security agencies and apparatus within his state, how could have been a local government chairman that does not even have the full powers by the Constitution to be able to address the security, which means you are now telling every local government, go into self-help. Going to self-help, because we believe that every local government, when any local government has that authority, will be able to know that, okay, he is employing people for security, he's equipping them as well for that security. What has happened in the time past, in Hausa, we have them, they call them people that you see them within the community, that even a chief can order an arrest on whosoever perpetrate any evil within that community. But can that happen again? No, because the local government chairman cannot even give directive to the DPO that is within his community, or even a police outpost that is even within his own community. They have to get a chain of command from the police outpost to DPO, from DPO to area command, from area command, commissioner of police, that which will take only how many weeks? So like I said, even a governor cannot be able to do that. So how does that look? The security architecture in this country needs to be restructured. Is it regional policing? Is it state policing? Is it community policing? We need to really, because what is the difference? What is the difference between the people that are killing our people and within us that we are there within the... What is the difference? Ammunition, just an arm. So when people are now legally carrying this ammunition to be able to defend themselves as security, nobody will be able to come into those communities, because they know that, look, this place is well armed, well secured by any formal form of security agency within that. So what is, because merely, what is the difference between the people that are killing people and with us? Is it that they are more stronger than us in physical? What is it? They come with machetes, they come with guns. That is just the difference.
It's got to be something that the nation has got to look at in order to prevent any form of gun running going on, not just in Plateau, but in different parts of the country where some of these things happen or may happen if we don't do much more than just the directive that has been given, yet we still see this kind of killings coming up. But we have to thank you at this point in time, Honorable Dachshund Bagos, for coming on. We hope that there'll be a lot more practical steps taken to ensure this stops happening. So thank you, and we hope that
thank you. We appreciate all your efforts, and we believe that trusting God that these issues will really be tamed, because the wrong coronation, the wrong narratives, we need to look at the real issues on why people are being killed. If not, this will just merely continue, and lives will be lost for no reason.
All right, so we'll be back with business news for you. Don't go away.
Well, let's head to business now. Of course, everything is connected. Insecurity also affects businesses, and that's why it's a problem that must be solved. Good morning. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. And we start off, as usual, from the global space, telling you what's going on with global oil prices. It rose on Thursday after data showed U.S. crude stockpiles fell more than expected last week, while the China economy is affecting a lot of things. The central bank is cutting its reserve ratio. Let's look at the numbers right here. Brent has gone up. Yesterday about this time, it was still in its 70s, 77 about. Now it's $80, $80.29 for a barrel at 0.3%. WTI is still far off there. I mean, the space between them is really big today. Yesterday it wasn't that much. $75.40 a barrel after it gained 0.4%. Now, what are those factors affecting it? We saw that it drew support from hopes for China's economy. China is a major consumer of global oil, so whatever happens there affects the price. And we also see that China's central bank announced a deep cut to bank reserves on Wednesday in a move that will eject about $140 billion of cash into the banking system, giving the economy hope of increased activities. Meanwhile, geopolitical tensions in the Middle East is still there, still a factor, though price gains were capped as risk premiums have already been priced in. Now let's go to the global grain space. Now Chicago corn futures edge higher on Thursday, with the market trading close to its highest level in 2 weeks, supported by concerns over lower production in Brazil. Looking at the prices now, we see wheat gained 0.9% to close at $6. Not close at this time, it's about $6.16 for a bushel. Soybeans also is up 0.4% at $12.45 for a bushel. Now we need to note that the corn market dropped to a three-year low last year, and stressful heat. Weather is a major factor when it comes to grains. Heat is a forecast for crop areas of Argentina, which has been on course for a bumper harvest. Also, commodity funds were net buyers of CBOT, one of the exchanges. CBOT wheat, CBOT corn, and soy meal features. That is what happened yesterday. And strong domestic demand is tightening India's corn supply. So the country's consumption of the animal feed ingredients is growing up to 2 million metric tons a year. Now let's come back home to Nigeria. Yesterday, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, very boastful, they collected a record 12.34 million trillion naira tax revenue for the Federation last year, 2023. And that was more than the target. The target was 10.7 trillion. Meanwhile, this might mean you are paying more taxes. Well, meanwhile, the federal government has handed the agency a target of 19.4 trillion naira for this year, 2024. And the chairman, Dr. Zaka Didiji, has said that this is achievable with the emplacement of effective collection system and ensuring a viable economic environment for businesses to prosper. According to the breakdown, it shows that oil revenue accounted for 3.17 trillion naira of the total takings, representing 25.6%, while non-oil revenue was 74.4%. That's 9.2 trillion naira. Still in Nigeria, yesterday I did say that it's a season of economic outlook. Yesterday, the NESG, that's the Nigerian Economic Group, Summit Group, had theirs, and pleasantly they had the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. He's been rare with the media, but he was there virtually. I'm sure you saw that on our news at 10 yesterday. We'll bring it to you on our subsequent bulletins. But they shared some observations, that's the NESG, and more importantly, the roadmap that they think would help the economy to stabilize in 2024.
Doesn't look like a large meeting since some of the participants are joining virtually, but that does not belittle the importance of the subject matter. The Nigerian Economic Summit Group is sharing observations on the performance of the economy in 2023, but it is focusing more on how best to navigate policies and implementation for a better 2024 in the stabilization phase with a projection of 3.5% GDP growth.
This phase then talks about achieving growth, not just about growth, but actualizing our natural resources to drive our collective purpose as a nation. And the first part to start with is understanding our natural capital. We are blessed tremendously with our natural capital. If we can achieve this, it will impact our GDP size, it will impact our economic structure, it will impact our employment and our poverty and inequality situations.
Brilliant ideas do not make impact, and the Chief Executive Officer is aware of that.
The cyclic nature of NESG's activities, the Outlook report at the beginning of the year, then we jump into the reform execution and monitoring with government, then we show up in October at the summit to signal where the country is, what we won on, what we lost on. Then we jump back into, again, reform action and execution. That cyclic process, whilst it looks mundane, is part of how you build national conversations that change a country over a generation or more.
And so, for the use of the government and private sector and economists,
these and more are some of the content in the NESG 2024 Macroeconomic Outlook, which also has the economic transformation.
That's it. Thank you, sir.
How many persons do we need? Where is the limit?
We'll be getting some more details on that roadmap which NESG launched yesterday with the CEO. But let's take a commercial break. We'll be back to have that conversation. And so it's now time to delve into what the NESG has. So let's see some of their observations just before we move to 2024. Some of the observations of the NESG from what they launched yesterday, that's the real GDP growth averaged 2.5% for the year, for the first three quarters. Non-oil sector retained its role as the primary driver of the economy, while oil sector's performance had repercussion, on other sectors. We obviously have some other observation. If I could have that, Nigeria's trade balance improved. Okay, inflation remained high. Our pockets, our purchasing power showed that to us. We don't need to be told. Remain high amid stalled productivity. External trade positions strengthened, but we didn't see that reflect in our external reserve. Our external trade went up. We saw the numbers there. Then the NESG concluded by saying that policy's impact worsened economic growth in 2023. Now, let's bring in the Chief Executive Officer of NESG, Dr. Tayo Aduloju, joins us virtually from Abuja. Dr. Tayo, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, good to have you. I mean, you were very busy yesterday, so thank you for coming out early to talk to us. And we've seen some of those things that you outlined for 2023. The policy's impact worsened economic growth for the year. I'm sure, I mean, it's not new. The subsidy removal was a major one last year, and I don't think we've gotten over it yet.
Well, I think when we deal with these big structural reforms, the first thing is to remove the politics from the messaging. These type of changes do not have short-term positive impacts anywhere in the world. They need some time to kick in and create the adjustments before you start to see the results of this type of reforms. What needs to happen then during the short term is you need to see a combination of market reforms and social reforms that cushion the effect. It's the effectiveness of those, for example, cushioning effects in terms of pro-poor strategies, etc., that just gives the citizens a sense of managing the short term. So I think if you looked at our signaling on these reforms, we never thought in the short term we would do better. And I think when Mr. Rwani speaks, he echoed almost the same sentiments the whole of last year. These are not reforms where in the short term, you just turn it around and it begins to perform. And I think when we listened to the central bank governor yesterday, I mean, they are still in price discovery mode at the central bank. And these are some of the things that require that you have better policy coherence and sequencing, especially on the cushioning effects of big pieces like a subsidy removal and, of course, the unification of the exchange rate. So that was something we definitely expected to see. Some of the things that became tricky then is how did the cushioning effects in terms of reforms like pro-poor policy, the government's palliatives, for example, the Declaration of Food Security and its transmission effects, how well and efficiently those programs were executed would then have an effect on the short term, how much of the direct effects of the policies citizens felt. But in the short term, there was no way we could have avoided the worsening effects on the economy by the end of 2023.
All right. So a lot of your conversations yesterday was centered around the 3 phases for moving forward, the outlook and all of that. And we have them right here, I believe. So we have the stabilization phase, which you spent a whole lot of time on. You have the consolidation phase and the acceleration phase. These made up a lot of your conversations with your chief economist yesterday at your event. Could you tell us, where are we now, stabilization, consolidation, and how do we know where we are? How do we move to the next phase?
I mean, I don't think anybody needs a crystal ball or a prophet to tell us that we are dealing with fantastic levels of macroeconomic stability. Our heat map showed across board all indicators signaling that this broad macroeconomic systems instability is the key issue. So the question of pursuing economic growth comes after you deal with the fundamentals of stabilizing the economy. And I think that was where our signaling comes from. Going forward, we need from the monetary and fiscal policy authorities clear forward guidance on the specific packets and bundles of reforms, their sequence, in terms of priorities that target reducing inflation, for example, and dealing specifically, for example, with former high growth sectors that have become laggards in the short term. We cannot pursue simultaneously stabilizing the economy and pushing for high growth, which in the medium term is possible. But to get to that ambition of government to get back to high growth, you must stabilize the macroeconomic fundamentals. And I think that's why where we are dealing with high macroeconomic instability across all the key indicators. Where we need to go in the next 12 months is a coherent economic policy coordination framework where the Monetary Policy Authority, we saw some better signal from the governor yesterday on where he would want to go in terms of reducing inflation and in terms of his approach to dealing with price stability. We need to see more of that signal and the effect of that signal on market regulators, especially in terms of ensuring that these sectors that have been heavily impacted in 2023 by the 2 flagship reforms, as you were, of the new government begin to move out of the region of low growth to being back as drivers. One of the things we noted yesterday is that traditional drivers of growth are now lagging behind. And it's important to get those sectors back on track. So I think where we are is clear. Where we need to go in the next 12 months is this seamless coordination of fiscal, monetary, and trade policy aligned with an investment framework that deals with some of the uncertainties that the volatility we've seen in the key macroeconomic indicators has created. Now, this volatility has also created a huge speculation, lack of confidence. That confidence needs clear strategic policy communications on an ongoing basis. And so we hope that on the coordination side of the economy, we see a periodic and regular kick in of policy communication signaling, and like I said, a strong sense of forward guidance on the key pieces of reforms to make the difference that we need to see.
All right, so we said that you also, very brilliant ones, because you did break it down on how we can actually move on from one stage to the other. You said improving productivity in agriculture sector, transformation of production sectors for job creation and global competitiveness, reinvigorating of services sector, and attracting private investment. I don't think a lot of these are new, and I know you said this even in the report that we just used. The strategy to get these bright ideas done, implemented. NESG obviously is not the executive arm of a government, they're not even in government, so you have the bright ideas, but you cannot implement it. But how do you accelerate the implementation? You have relationship with government agencies and different arms.
So the great thing about NESG's work is that, as you saw yesterday, it's not about trying to do government's work. It's about providing some economic analysis, clear advocacy on key areas. So, for example, we know that in the stabilization phase, moderate inflation rates will do us good. It will drive fiscal stability, to drive external sector stability, it drive output growth stability, for example. And that's something that we've signaled to the central bank. And we are at least encouraged by the fact that the central bank, in its unveiling of its own new strategic agenda, has identified inflation reduction with some clear pointers to how they might go about it. Of course, we will wait to see the full central bank strategic agenda document to be able to add some more value to and input into that conversation. So it's about creating a sense of clear focus areas. So and then getting the authorities to look at how we measure success and how we track that we are doing well in moving towards those areas. So, for example, on the fiscal policy side, the fact is that we are still dealing with a low liquidity vis-a-vis our needs, both on the domestic and the external side. So we need to see a combination of a clear investment stimulation plan, a clear borrowing plan, a clear spending plan. So when we do borrow money or when we do make money, where will we put it, and what's the sequence we will invest those resources in to drive significant growth? We need to see a strategy around solving risks in terms of the government whilst it's a new government, it has inherited a set of liabilities that it must manage, and that creates on the fiscal side a line of sight on liquidity for the monetary policy side. So these things have to work together, and our goal is to make sure that we nudge the authorities to create, like I said, better signal, clearer understanding of where.
All right, Dr. Tayo. Obviously, there's always a lot to say, but we have to thank you so much because we need to delve into another side of the conversation. The Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Thank you so much, and we will follow you up to ensure that we work together, coordinate, and get it all done.
That would be great.
So we have to switch over. Yeah, thank you. We have to switch over now because, well, Mr. Ruwani, Mr. Bismarck Ruwani, the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, is standing by. Mr. Ruwani. We did take a little bit of your time there. We apologize, but you know this report. But Mr. Rani, the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, joins us now to talk about interbank short-term rate, which has slipped. We know that Dr. Taya talked about the cost of borrowing, and of course, that affects businesses funding, the cost of funding. But Mr. Rani, tell us about this. Good morning, and thank you for your patience. We had to steal a bit of your time right there. So tell us about this interbank rate that has slipped and what impact it could have for businesses.
You know, we have to look at interbank rates in the context of the market. The interbank rates hover around the short-term liquidity or long-term, short-term saturation of funds at a point in time. But also we had treasury bill rates that went increased yesterday from their low. For example, 90-day treasury bills went up from 2.5 all the way back to about 5%. And in the long end, also 365 days also increased. So while we have primary treasury rates increasing, we had interbank rates slipping because of some form of excess liquidity in the interbank market. But the impact of all of this volatility and liquidity saturation has been that it has brought the Naira under pressure. As you know, the Naira fell to its all-time low yesterday of 1,400 Naira to a dollar at the power market. In the official market, NAFEM market, it was 882. The gap between the two is about 600 Naira. In terms of percentage variance, it is significant. And that is the effect and the impact of policy, bad sequencing and structural defects in the market structure, in the market that we have. So we now have the Naira trading at 1,400 to the dollar and 1,780 to the pound. And why? We asked a few questions. People said, well, there are some people paying school fees, some airline remittances. In spite of the signal that came out from the central bank governor was very clear that they're clearing the backlog, and in reality, they are clearing the backlog. But the problem is that the market, there has been no system right now where we now say the Central Bank of Nigeria is going to sell the sum of 200 million Naira today in an open auction. Let us see that happen. If we don't have that, people become tentative and more speculative and afraid that the exchange rate is going to depreciate. I think that is the most important thing. The fear of exchange rate depreciation. We started at 1,100. As I got all the way to 1,400 a dollar, and it looks as if, except something different is done, it looks as if that rate continues to depreciate. Even though I believe that Naira will find its way back in the near term.
Yeah, talking about Naira, the central bank governor yesterday at the NESG event did say that the Naira is undervalued. Are you in line with that?
If you compare the Naira at the parallel market, the Naira in the NAFEM market to its purchasing power parity value, you can argue, right? But those are theoretical and abstract terms. The reality is that if you go across the road to buy your dollars today, you have to buy it at 1,400. If the official rate is 885, that currency is overvalued when you compare the parallel rate to the market rate. If you compare it to the purchasing power parity, which is a theoretical rate, you could argue that the Naira is probably undervalued to about 2 or 3%. But that's not the reality. Is what money can buy. If you go out there and try to buy the dollars, you will get it at 1,400. If you go into the supermarket now, the products that you're going to buy are priced at 1,400. The airline exchange rate is today at 1,281. So it is very clear that the Naira is under pressure because of three things. One, the amount of supply of dollars in the market is not adequate. Two, there are still some restrictions and making this in what we call an illegality premium. And three, the market, the way it operates today, is still opaque. We need to have an open auction where everybody bids, including the central bank, and everybody supplies, including the central bank. That way, there will be proper price discovery. I think we are going to get there very soon.
All right, well, we look forward to that very soon, Mr. Bismarck Rwani. Thank you so much for your time and borrowing on some of your time for the first conversation. Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company. All right, just before we hand over back to the Sunrise team, let's look at the market. The market made history yesterday, I have to tell you. It got to over 100,000 index points after gaining 3% and having the equities, the market cap at 55.583. We saw over 100,000, 2 digits for the first time. If we could have that yesterday. There you have it. The volume and deals were in red, but I tell you, the industrial goods sector is still the driver of the market. Yesterday, we had over 100,000 for 101,571.11 after it gained 3%. Great market at this time. Maybe not a very good time to jump in, but it's a good market for Nigeria at this time. At least it shows investor sentiment perhaps is in the right position for us. So oil and gas did not really gain much yesterday, but we can see industrial goods, of course, Dangote Cement is still there pushing that. The top trades for yesterday, Transcorp, Universal Insurance and Unity Bank were those are the top trades for yesterday. The losers were NEM, Cadre and TIP. And of course the top gainers, which we saw earlier, Wapik Insurance, Bua Cement joined Dangote Cement, and Japan Gold, they're back on stream. Oil and gas, that's what they do. We know that oil and gas is getting right there. So I did promise that today we will talk about the fixed income market. Unfortunately, we are not able to do that. We promise to do that tomorrow, God's grace, because that market also has some movement. Mr. Aruwani and Dr. Tayo did talk about, the cost of borrowing and, of course, the value of the Naira. And we had the calendar released by the government, the federal government. So these are some very important. So while the NGX, the equities market, is rallying, you might not be a good time to jump in there. You might want to go to safer investment. So, if you invest with the government, even when the governments change, you will still have your investment secured, and then you have your percentage, which is already set. So that means that, your investment is safe. It might not be might not move as fast as you do with maybe the cryptocurrency and all of that, but it's always a safe place to be. So we'll do that tomorrow, we'll dwell on it and speak to an analyst that will help us to understand some of those background stories and what's going on there. And maybe it's a good time for you to get in there. We also have the smaller OTC markets, that's the NUSD OTC. Yesterday, they're also in a bullish trend, 0.80%. So we have it there for the NUSD OTC, 1,027.81. The market cap has stayed on the 1 trillion, 1.39 trillion. So this is the smaller market. It's still talking about stocks, but not as big as maybe the smaller companies and all of that go right. The activity for the NUSD yesterday, we saw the volume was in the green, 910.77%. The value was, however, down 41.49%. They had 25 deals, which was more than almost 200%. So quietly, the markets are gaining up. Maybe not just the NGX, not just the equities market. 9 stocks were traded. So what it tells us generally is perhaps the country is winning more the confidence of investors, and which is a good thing. But as the NESG and everyone else have said before now, it is time to consolidate on some of those reforms that have already started in 2023, and hopefully we will see the benefits, the prices that Nigerians paid last year, and we'll see the benefits now. So I'll hand over now to the Sunrise team, Chamberlain, Malpe, and Ayo, and I know they are also looking forward to the benefits, of the price they paid for the reforms, the harsh economic reforms that were made last year. We want to see the benefits in 2024.
All right, welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, some breaking news as you've seen there as well. The Supreme Court has dismissed the appeal of Tonye Cole and the APC. As the APC candidate, they upheld the victory of Siminalayi Fubara as governor, duly elected governor of Rivers State. Well, while we were at that, another scenario also played out. Supreme Court also affirming the election of Kefas Agbo as governor of Taraba State, dismissing the appeal filed by Professor Yahya Sani of the NNPP for grossly lacking in merit. So they're also taking a look at the third case before them, which is being examined now. So Sokoto will be up next, and I know you're thinking one thing already, but let's hold on until that decision comes through, and we will bring them to you as we get them.
Indeed, Chamberlain, you know, when you were reading the Taraba story, something that stood out for me, which is the term grossly. You know, you hear all manner of reasons that the Supreme Court will give for giving its decisions, and one of them is lacking in merit. And so far, so good. We've heard that on a number of cases, but I think it's the first time we're actually saying grossly lacking in merit. And I think that perhaps lawyers might be able to shed light on what lacking in merit means and what grossly lacking, because it might not just be the normal English we speak. I mean, if you ask me as an English major, I know what I'll say, but who knows? It might mean another thing in legalese.
Oh, yes, indeed. So we do have Lalo Akode here with us, the former presidential aide. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. How are you doing?
So all these court cases have gone the way they've gone. So,
and you are not looking gross in any way, trust me.
Not like a boy, yeah, it's very grossly merited. Not like merit. But certain people were not happy over the week because of some decisions which they think is not being done properly. For instance, the decision by the CBN to move some departments to Lagos, some senators and some persons reacting, saying, no, that shouldn't be. And then northern leaders also came together asking that, look, we need something to be done about security. So the question of state police popping up again in discussion and lexicon and hugging the headlines, probably. So all of this back in the cycle. So those two issues seem to stand out this week on the part of those who saw them, even though others thought, well, it might have been misconstrued. What did you make of them, though?
Yeah, well, on the issue of the fears that have been expressed on the possible relocation of the federal capital to Lagos, I think it's just, you know, I think it's overplaying these ethnic permutations, you know. And I think it's important for, especially people that are in the Senate, to elevate their interventions, you know, much more elegantly. I think it is really below a distinguished senator, not talk of a group, to begin to suggest that, you know, because CBN is moving a banking supervision department to Lagos, banking supervision department to Lagos. That's where all the bank headquarters are. So it's just raw common sense. I mean, if the senators were going to get involved in any matter, it's important for them to look at the whole ramifications. To be a senator is a big deal. You just don't get yourself, you know, involved in such very, you know, I mean, I find it very worrying, you know, to have senators make a national statement, come together as a group to say, hey, what's going on there? This is the banking supervision department that is going back to Lagos, where it was before. Makes sense. The same thing with FAN. The headquarters of FAN up until time that Adi came was in Lagos. That is where the hub is the biggest hub for aviation in the country. Of course, followed by Abuja. So when you look at these things, you are just wondering, is there a subtext? And from our experience, you know, when you see people, you know, cry wolf when there is no wolf, there's possibly another subtext that they're trying to push.
But what do you think? Well, if you said there's a subtext, many were thinking, could it be that they misconstrued the intent for probably inadequate communication or something?
No, I honestly think that they're just playing games. You know, because I mean, those two movements clearly make sense. If you follow it, it makes sense. It makes sense ordinarily. When something makes sense ordinarily, and people try to give it a spin, that is where you need to be careful what is going on. And I think again, you know, regrettably, is the ethnic dimension that is given to everything. You know, on a very negative spin. You know, I mean, those two things, very simple matter. It shouldn't even have caused any kind of worry. You know, I mean, there are more important things for the senators to worry about.
Well, some of them even made statements saying, well, this may cost the president.
Oh, wow. I mean, I think they're just joking around, really.
Well, I'm just wondering, I've had calls to ask this question. I guess we'll be delving a little deeper. I'm going to be advertising on this program, on Hard Copy tomorrow. We've been delving a little deeper into these issues. But I'm just wondering how much it is that, ordinary on-the-face decisions affect, whether, when we think about the political considerations and how it could be misinterpreted or how it could be construed within political circles, whether that also affects, commonplace decisions that ordinarily should be taken, commonsensical decisions. I don't know, you have been a spokesperson. I'm sure you've also had the privilege of dealing with fallouts like this, and perhaps also dealing with, being privy to some of the conversations on some policies that maybe ordinarily those in government would have wanted to push. But when they think of how it can be construed and perhaps the backlash that could follow, they shelve it.
Yeah, well, very, very important point, and that goes to the importance of communication. It's always important for government to have to come out and explain things properly and say, look, these fears are not, necessary. They are business. This is what we're trying to do. This is the reason why we're trying to do it, and try to influence the narrative. And I must commend Mr. Ononuga, statement that came out yesterday to explain that. Look, I mean, because people are already saying that, oh well, they're taking this FCT, back to Lagos. He made a very well-reasoned, fairly well-reasoned statement to say that no, there's no such thing like that, and he explained. That look, for instance, FAN was in Lagos. It makes sense for FAN to be in Lagos. Excuse me, come on. That is where the hub of, and by far, Lagos is the hub by far, ahead of Abuja. Abuja is next. So, and he explained that. And he said that, look, don't worry yourself. The capital of Nigeria is Abuja by law. By law. So the president doesn't even have the power, to do that. But you're right. It has to take, continuous engagement and communication. And I think Mr. Ononuga's statement tried to do that.
But, sometimes we see that government is catching up. I'm just wondering whether, because ordinarily one would have thought this decision by FAN is an internal thing. It shouldn't have caused any uproar.
I think there is.
Sadly, that wasn't the situation.
Yeah, I think, to put it very frankly, for the sake of public consumption, I think there's a worry, among a group, section of this country, and I've raised this question before. Oh, people thought that when Buhari was there, he was giving a lot of the things to the north. Now Tinubu is there, he's giving a lot of things to the southwest. I think that's the genesis of these things. But really, it doesn't matter to the people, and it doesn't really matter to the work of government. Just get the job done.
All right. So to the next one, which is this restructuring of our security architecture, aka state police. Even though multi-layer policing may sound more appropriate because you have different things, because if you just say state police, some may narrow it down to a particular mindset or frame. But when you talk about multi-level policing, isn't it about time from the narrative you've seen? Does it make sense for us to go that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are beginning to have a groundswell of opinion, almost becoming a national groundswell of opinion around the imperative for state police. And, personally, it gladdens my heart that everybody is coming to that point. You recollect, after the Christmas Day Eve attack in Plateau, that governors of the North Central actually came around and they were beginning to suggest that, look, I mean, maybe we have to take care of our own security just like Amoteku people did in Southwest, So it's a good thing that we are looking at state police, with much more seriousness. This is something that honestly we should have done in the last 8 years as a nation, but a little bit of reluctance here and there. But I think those reluctances are beginning to disappear. And I recollect that President Tinubu had also promised, during the campaigns, that he would take a good look at the issue of state police, that he will try to make it happen. So I think we're getting close to that.
I wonder, though, why do you think that many of these persons make these comments about this, especially when I do remember some time ago when, God bless his memory, former governor of Ondo State, the South governors, the Northern governors, they all came together and said, yes, they think it's about time for us to have that. So governors at the time did agree across board that that was the way to go. And then we also have lawmakers. So all of these persons, if they feel hard done by or strongly about it, they can go through their members in the National Assembly and then make a case. So when they make those statements outside the purview of the National Assembly, one wonders, is it that they're also, perhaps, borrowing your words, playing games because they know what to do if they want to?
Well, you know, I hope, you know, let's just hope that, you know, that is going to happen. Because, yes, in the last 8 years, for instance, or even since 1999, you know, two aspects. I mean, two groups could have made this happen. The executive could have sent the bill or a member of the National Assembly. It doesn't happen. It didn't happen in the last 8 years, you know. I think something came close in the last 3 years, but it didn't really rise up. So hopefully, as we are garnering this groundswell of national opinion, I think, you know, somebody ought to take this matter to the National Assembly, you know, especially when they have their...
It's been there before. It fell through.
Take it all the way through.
They just, you know, they told us then, I think it was the 8th Assembly that told us they were going to revisit the matter.
Right.
They never did.
Well, I think, you know, if you look at the constitutional amendment stuff that they do every time, you know, I think they got it up to a point, and I think it ran into a problem that it didn't get maybe the number of states, you know.
So some said they didn't know that that was the ultimate intent about multi-layer policing, and then they said, okay, they will have a second look at it.
Yeah, well, because it will take a constitutional amendment, you know, I imagine, So what it will have to be is that there has to be all the stakeholders have to agree, you know, the presidency, National Assembly, state governors, state houses of assembly, you know, we should have enough. But I think it is clear that everybody thinks we should try state police. Good news.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, let me wrap all of these issues that you have raised up, Mr. Laolu Akonde, to something you stated, and which is that of communication. Be it the issues around what Senator Ndume raised, the issue of relocation of government agencies from one place to the other, and the issue of multi-level policing that did not fall through in the National Assembly. There is something that I understand to be what they call multi-stakeholder engagement in all of these issues. You spoke about communication, and communication is a lot more than just giving information out to people. How can we tie all these things together so that these things don't always conflagrate, but they just move smoothly from level to level in getting people carried along, so we don't have all this bigotry and all of those things that have been alleged around?
Excellent point, Ayo. So if you look at the issue of communication, so there are levels of communication. There is internal communication, there is external communication. So most of the people that are making this, that are expressing these fears about, CBN moving its banking supervision department to Lagos, FAN going back to Lagos, most of them are members of the ruling party. Although, they were very tactical in ensuring that the spokesperson is the NNPP senator from Kano. But most of them are members of the APC. So that's the point. So what kind of communication is taking place within the APC about what the government is doing? There seems to be a disconnect, because normally there should be an effective communication between the party and the government. I remember that there used to be a committee that was headed then by the vice president, that was set up by the president, that had the members of the presidency, that had members of the party, and that had members of the National Assembly that meets just so things can be connected, there can be coordination, and there can be effective communication. I think President Bola Tinubu needs to do that. He needs to have a place where, the presidency, the National Assembly, and the ruling party sit together regularly to review this matter. That's a form of communication that is missing right now. But in terms of even communicating with the public, I think the government can do a lot better, than it is doing generally. But I think, the statement yesterday was very good. Maybe, there should also be engagement, meetings with some of these people to say that, look, this is not what is going on. Although I really think that, it's more of ethnic permutations that is just an unnecessary fears that is being expressed.
Well, staying with that issue of communication, Mr. Konde, you also raised an issue the other time that the issue of relocating one department in an organization to another place for effectiveness is supposed to be an internal communication. How it got out to the point that it was now steered or skewed in the way it is being skewed is another conversation altogether. Would you say that there is some kind of internal communication error, leak, misalignment, even within government agencies to that effect as well?
Well, I think it was the central bank itself that released the information about the fact that it was moving some of its departments to Lagos. Now, I don't recollect exactly whether it was an internal memo, but making it public ought not to be a problem. I think it's even reasonable to get ahead of it and explain properly what it is. And from the statement that I read, that was where I saw that some of the departments includes the banking supervision. All the banks have their headquarters in Lagos, or 90% of the banks have their headquarters in Lagos. Where else can you better supervise them than in Lagos? So I think in terms of the communication, I think it is right for the central bank, to put this information out. And it's also right for the people that are in government, presidency, the executive of government, and the National Assembly, where these fears are being expressed, to also talk to themselves, and clear whatever fears. I don't think there's any reason to worry at all. Absolutely nil.
Well, I guess that also goes to whether or not the relevant agencies are communicating effectively enough with the people. Staying with communication, Mr. Konde, because you started it. Stakeholder engagement in the National Assembly to the effect that some of the bills that ought to help strengthen our security apparatchik seems to be a little faulty. Take the issue that we discussed with Mr. Bagos, for instance, when he talked about the fact that the local government administration ought to have been an issue of history. But for whatever reason, they are not able to get that word passed down to the many houses of assembly that we have. What is missing in that stakeholder engagement process?
Thank you. I think that there is a lot of unaddressed challenges in terms of how even a party operates. The party machinery itself is not functioning as effectively as it ought to be or as it used to do. So that's one. So you should have all kinds of meetings at the party levels, engagement, so that people can talk to themselves. You are in government, I'm in the party, I'm here and there. That is not happening. But I think to the point about local government, one of the damning experience that we've had, in this Fourth Republic is what I think, this is my view, is the emasculation of the local government. So it's as if the local government does not exist at all. And we are seeing the problems, the consequences in terms of the deepening of the insecurity, because the people are there. The people are in the local government. The local government is where all these things happen. And local government has completely become without any kind of resources, without any kind of structural, checkpoints. There's no money. The money is not going there. The governors are mismanaging for the most part. Not all of them. For the most part, they are controlling. If they were controlling for good, but they have emasculated local government so much that nothing is happening there. So these are some of the problems. These are some of the challenges. We need to fix the processes in the party, especially the ruling party, and we need to fix the processes of the local government administration in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Lalo Akonde, former presidential aide. So just before we go, Taufik, your message about the killings in Plateau. You say the unabated spate of killings in Plateau State has shown the insincerity and insensitivity of government as well as people against one another. Why can't the government be sincere and more decisive in taking drastic actions against those bent on causing mayhem? These guys are not ghosts. They are known faces and live among the people. Well, that's how far we can go. So Dixon, Ayodiji, several other people will thank you for your messages. So yes, indeed, we do hope that you go on out there, everyone, and do what you can. Set goals, set targets, and achieve for yourself. It doesn't matter if they don't like you. I'm Chamberlain myself. Goodbye.
Well, it's not very hopeful today now looking at it, but hey, the only thing we have to keep going is hope. So whatever it is we do, let us not let the candle of hope die. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm Malkwe Ogun Yusuf.
And don't forget the element of love. It ties it all together. Have a wonderful and productive day. I'm Ayo Makinde.